Now we're recording. Hi, Badri. Thank you for coming to IPA.
Hey, Damon. Uh, Great to be here.
Nice. I I came across your website, Hitwit.ai, and I fell in love with your tagline, using AI to learn scientifically. I'm all about teaching and learning. So tell me more about Hitwit.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be talking to you. So, this was an interesting journey for our team. We used to be at a private equity company, and we were at an interesting intersection. We were working on two different parts of the portfolio of this fairly large private equity company, $1 billion plus. On the one hand, we were working on our education portfolio, which primarily consisted of K to 12 schools. And we had pioneered a lot of app based education even before the pandemic. And we had seen how, if designed carefully, app based education could result in great outcomes, taking kids from the 80th percentile to the 99th percentile on standardized testing. On the other hand, we were also responsible, the same team, for our for our upskilling, workforce upskill, recruiting and upskilling
Hmm.
portfolio. This was a fairly large portfolio. I mean, every month we'd get 100,000 applications and get 500 people on board for
Wow.
various different portfolio companies.
Hmm.
And we really had a struggle in upskilling people and teaching them the products and processes that we had. And so there was this realization that if we could apply the same learning science principles that we knew worked in K 12 education, obviously with modifications to account for the fact that the subject matter tends to be more open ended as you go post secondary, you could get great outcomes. And that was the bet we made. So that's why we built this company out. And we started that. And as we got into it, we learned a lot from various folks who were using it as well as to what is interesting, what works. And so that's the product that you see right now. It's being used at a few universities and a few companies, and we're really learning from we are a learning product that is actually learning from our users.
That's fantastic. I love the premise because at first I was a little bit skeptical of using AI to learn, but now I feel that learning with AI is probably the fastest and the best way to learn. So how does this help? I can understand that this could really help the students how they learn. If they are curious about something, they can iterate that prompting and keep learning. But how would this help the professor? How would this help the teachers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And one of the things that we realize is like AI is not a silver bullet, right? That's not going to take away the thoughtfulness that professors bring to this. It is a tool when used in the right way by the right people. The way we sort of like to frame this is AI can help a lot with many steps in how a student learns something, but the why comes really from the professor. I mean, all of us remember our college professors who inspired us to go into fields because they gave us the why to learn something, and that still has to come from the professor. Um, and many parts of the how as well. So the way we have built this up is that instead of just giving students access to chat gpt, but whether you give it or not, they're going to use it anyway, and let them do whatever they're doing. uh, we create a structured path for professors to take their course material and create a lesson plan that we think of as a virtual teaching assistant. So it does not replace the lecture or the direct interaction with the professor. It complements it so that a student can go back, and when they're thinking about it, it's like, okay, what's the answer to this? And then they can explore it in their own way. So in that sense, the we view what we have built as a mini me for the professor who's available to the student at any given time, but really the professor sets the boundaries of this. Um,
That's
um,
amazing. I love the word that you use, virtual teaching assistants, because where I'm teaching, I don't think I have enough budget for the TAs. If
yeah,
I add the hours for the TAs, it doesn't last the whole semester. So they
right,
have
right.
to either drop during the semester or they have to start later. and it's very difficult to hire a TA every semester, train
Right.
them,
Right.
and only to be or have to replace them by
Yeah.
the next semester. So, and but students really need the help of the TAs. Everything from how to do the assignments to solving a specific problem. So, would it be okay if you show me how this works? So,
Sure, I will. And also, the reason we sort of went after the TA function is personal story. I came to the US 25 years back now, and my first assignment was a teaching assistant at Georgia Tech. And I knew what professors did, I knew what learners did. That was all complicated. If any job could be automated, it was mine. So that's why we chose to focus on the teaching assistant function. But yeah, without further ado,
fantastic.
let's talk about what we've built. And yeah, let me just sort of walk you through what we've built. This is what a professor would see when they log into the admin side of our platform. And what they're actually doing is they are creating a course based on their own lecture material. So this is in fact a public domain course, I believe at the University of Maryland. And what the professor would do is they're mainly just uploading things to the platform. And once they upload it, what the platform does is it extracts everything that you see here. Basically, it extracts a text summary of whatever document you uploaded, it extracts the images, and based on both of them, it creates this knowledge graph or concept map of whatever is in each document. And this is the part where AI comes in, sort of its natural language processing, it's understanding what is in a document and putting it in some with some structure. And so once you've uploaded enough documents, as in whatever you think should be in one lesson, then you can ask us to go find additional sources on the web, or you can add it yourself. So there's a search function here as well. And after that, you can basically just give students some context on, okay, who's this for, and a classic Bloom's taxonomy, right? What is it you will achieve after you do this course? And all of these are sort of Bloom's taxonomy type of verbs. You understand something, or you analyze something, or you identify something, and so on. So this is the scoping part of what you do with your material. The second part is where you go into design. And so again, this is automatically generated, where you can ask the platform to go generate questions, and within a question you can sort of click this and say go deeper, and it will generate the second order list of questions, which are sort of the next level, um, going deeper into this particular thing. The reason to do it this way is this gives students sort of guardrails. When they log in, they will see this list of questions and they're going to pick one of them. And the idea is that the platform has identified some key points that need to be covered in order to understand everything about this question. So, in order to understand what is data science and what are its main applications, according to the source material that you've uploaded, the platform has identified some 10 to 15 key points. And the student is going to go on a treasure hunt, if you will, to unearth all these key points by asking questions. And they're going to see this map and use this as a guide to ask the right question. So initially it'll all be gray, and then you ask a question about organizations, and if you ask the right sort of question, that key point gets unearthed, and so the student sort of is going on this treasure hunt, and that's how they're learning. um, our thought process behind this, and here we'd like feedback from professors as well, is we tried the Socratic method in the beginning, where the platform asked questions and students gave answers. But that
Hmm.
becomes a little complicated because a student coming in does not necessarily know the material, so they can't really answer questions. So we made it reverse Socratic, in the sense that the student's job is to ask questions,
I love
and the
it.
answer contains all of this. And so that's what happens in terms of the learning part of it. And as a professor, of course, you can get the automatically generated things, and then you can edit them, or you can delete something and you can add a new question, and so on. So you have control over this. So this is mainly how you control the learning experience for the student.
That's
um,
fantastic. So, So the input is the teaching materials. So
Yeah.
that could be my own PowerPoint slides, or maybe there's a reference PDF that I downloaded somewhere, or maybe it could be some kind of website. Could it
Yep.
also be like a YouTube video that I
Yes.
found very helpful for the topic?
Yep. YouTube videos, your own videos as well. Then PowerPoint, basically all common file formats: PowerPoint, document, PDF, everything,
Mhm.
and also website. So if you give us an HTML, we'll go fetch whatever is in there as well.
Do I need to structure that in a certain way? So, okay, this website is for chapter 5, that website is for chapter 7. Do I have to structure that, or do I just dump everything in?
That's a great question. Right now, we are recommending that professors do that themselves, meaning
Hmm.
that they create chapter 5 as one unit and chapter
Hmm.
7 as another unit. We are working on doing that automatically, but I think just based on what we've seen when people use this, they want that level of control. They actually don't want to
Yes.
leave that to the AI.
Yep. I want that level of control. Okay, we're just going to talk about chapter 5, and here are the materials that I feed in for the chapter 5.
Right.
That's great. And the output, so that's the input, and the output is the knowledge graph, the set of questions that the students could answer,
Yeah,
but at the same time, students can ask Hitwit with the questions they're curious about related to chapter 5,
that's
and then
right.
they can go deeper based on their curiosity.
Correct. In fact, they're asked to go deeper. So I'll show you the learner experience in a minute.
Okay.
Actually, before we go into and show it, it might be easy for you to see exactly what you're going to get at the end.
Oh, fantastic.
So the student is going to get this screen where it'll give them a question and say, "Hey, this is my initial answer. Now let's explore this further. Ask your follow-up questions." And what the student is doing is the stuff in gray. It is they're going to ask questions,
Hmm.
and every question that they asked is actually graded for how relevant it is.
Oh.
So they go through this, and at some point the system is going to say, basically after like 3 4 5 6 questions, they've covered enough of the knowledge graph. The system is going to say, you can summarize if you want, or you can keep asking questions as long as you want, but at some point students just want to tap out and say, okay, I'm done. And at that point they will get this score. They will get a score that says, okay, you got 94 out of 100. Why did you get 94 out of 100? So what did you
Mm.
explore? What did you miss? Like, why is it not 100 out of 100? Is because you missed some of these things. And it's available as this text. It is also available, as I said, as this concept map where
Mm.
you can see the stuff in gold is the stuff that you covered, the stuff in gray is the stuff that you did not cover, and specifically the key points that did not get covered are, for example, I was doing this and I didn't ask questions about what examples there might be of big data
Mm.
or what real-time processing really means and so on. Right, so it's sort of telling them, okay, these are the questions that you did not ask. And then we get into what we call the synthesis portion of this. Again, this is sort of the learning science behind this. Is first you ask questions, but then you've only got that information in working memory. You have not yet committed it to long-term memory. And you do that by synthesis, meaning we have few different modes. One of them is just a quiz. So you can ask a
Hmm.
quiz if you want. But the one that we really recommend is not the quiz, but speaking out loud. So the student is going to get a blank screen and say, okay, just speak or type whatever you understood of this. And they speak or type. And then it's going to say, okay, good, you covered these points, you did not cover these other points. And they can do it again if they want. Um, so that's how they're sort of actively recalling what they're doing and committing it to long-term memory. The quiz will appear every time the student logs in. Let me pause here before I show the the student experience. Let me see if there are any questions I can answer.
This is great. One thing that I really love about this is that it involves the teacher. So the teacher is structuring the content. So it's not like a chat GPT where there's like no structure and I can go anywhere and I can just ask many things, but there are some guide rails and a scope of what I'm going to ask. And at the end of the day, students are encouraged to ask questions, ask insightful questions that covers kind of a broad topics that has been covered in that particular chapter. So I really like this uh, human in the loop. So the
Right. Yeah.
professors is in the loop,
Yeah.
but the students are not just copying and pasting things from the internet or from ChatGPT. It is an interactive dialogue that sparks curiosity and encourages the students to ask more questions. So I love that blend of using AI and also having people in the loop and interested in the topic. That's awesome.
Yeah, and this is honestly also one of the places where we are hoping to learn from professors using this, right? I mean, there are some parts I'm sure we got right, and there are some parts we got wrong. But as you said, I mean, you hit it on the head. The key thing here is engagement, right? How
Hmm.
do you keep students engaged with this, and make sure that they're learning?
Yeah, one of the challenging things about a lot of chat GPT type of material is that students interact with the chat GPT model, and that's great for their learning. But how do I monitor and how do they know if they covered
Right.
the right material? Maybe they're going down on a very small sliver and they're missing out the whole picture, or they're
Right.
just going too shallow and they don't go deep enough. So having the students have that understanding of where they are, and also giving that feedback back to the professor so that okay, student A did not do anything at all, student B really went deep and but went down on one single topic, student C was too shallow. So having that understanding of where the students are and what they did between the classes, I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and you hit that on the head, right? We need to make sure, as you put it, humans are in the loop here. That we aren't just saying, okay, here is AI, go do whatever you want with it. I
Hmm.
mean, the professors have an understanding, I think, of how to learn. I mean, they obviously have insight into the subject matter itself, like somebody might understand data science well, but they also have this very keen insight into how does one go about learning data science, because they've walked that journey. I mean, they've got a rich complex understanding of a topic, and they know how that journey goes and what connections they want students to be making between one particular chapter and something else that you want to learn. And so we were trying to surface all of that. So I think maybe one other thing that's probably worth talking about as well is, we've tried to do dual coding for everything. I mean, that's another learning thing, right? That basically everything that you do, there is a chart that we surface as well. So i I personally don't believe in this concept of visual learners versus non-visual learners, but I think it does help to have both things sort of reinforcing the same thing. There is a bunch of text you get, but there is also an image that's guiding you, and the more cross connections you can make, the better it is for you. And the other thing about concept graphs that is really useful is they highlight relationships and give you a way to sort of structure information in a brief
Mm.
way, not too verbal in your head. So that's something we've consciously tried to do at all times.
Can we see
Um,
the student's view?
yeah, sure. So the students are going to see something like this, and what there is a lot of content here in terms of various different features. Let's just get right into what students will see when they go in to learn. One other thing I forgot to mention is this is our public site. It's free for anybody to use, Hitwit.ai. But what we normally do is we set up a private site for every given institution
Hmm.
so that only people with that .edu site can access it. That .edu email ID can access it. That way, we keep things separate, and your course material is not going to go out into the world.
Hmm.
And your students' data also does not go out into anybody else. I mean, it's a separate secure site that gets created.
Fantastic.
So as I said, when I log in, I'm first going to get these quizzes. This is really for active recall
Hmm.
and spaced repetition. The way it is set up is that the rate of repetition is determined by the by whether I get it right or not. So, for
Mm.
example, I got this right, wrong, so it will repeat again when I log in tomorrow. On the other hand, if I get something right, uh, that will not show up. And in fact, after I get it right some three, four, five times consecutively, it's going to just say, okay, I've mastered this. And the other thing we've done is this is always a shuffle deck in the sense that you're not going to get just something from one subject matter. It is we're forcing people to recall this, so it sort of is a shuffle deck of everything that you've learned. But for now, let me say I'm done revising and go into learning things. We can, for example, when you can resume or you can pick a new topic as well. Maybe what I'll do is just go to the exact same thing that we were looking at right now on the professor side. So, professor had identified a few different documents. So the student can, if they choose to first see the documents themselves, the exact same view that we saw, right? And they can, in fact, open the document as well and read the whole thing. They can watch the YouTube videos right here on the platform. I guess this video does not have playback permitted, but basically they get access to all the source material.
Hmm.
But they don't have to go through all of it because since the professor has taken the trouble of creating the lesson plan, they're going to land and they see this screen that says, okay, pick some question and what is it you want to learn. And let's say I pick this question that we were just learning. What the student is going to get is the answer, the short answer, and then it's going to say you explored only 0 out of 15 key points, and it'll sort of tell them why they've only got this.
Mm.
Essentially, if I say move on, it'll say it only covered 0 of 15 key points. Do you want to dig deeper to uncover them? And you basically it's sort of asking them to dig deeper. And at this point, you keep asking insightful questions. For first time users, there is this feature available where you can ask the bot to suggest a question, but it'll disappear after I've used it a few times. So since
Hmm.
I have a, just to illustrate this, I have a flag set so that I can have this. Um, so the student asked a question, right? The platform first said great insight because it was a relevant question, and it gave the student a short answer. We
Hmm.
design it so that this is not more than 100 words. We don't want to just keep talking at students. We want to give
Hmm.
them something that they can use. It'll also pull up any images that are relevant in the source material so that you can also look at relevant images. If, for example, now I asked a poor question like, what is the weather in California?
Yeah.
It's basically going to get me back on track and say, you're asking a question not relevant, please
Mm.
go ask a relevant question.
Hmm.
And then of course this is where it's asking me to find these key points using this map of what to ask.
I see. Hmm.
And so I've asked a question about data. What I would do normally is to say, okay, what have I not covered, how can I sort of cover that?
Mm.
And so I'd ask questions based on that.
Oh, so you have the mind
That's
map that is generated, and we're trying to cover the whole mind map through asking the questions,
that's correct. Correct.
and that's the way to learn. That's
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah. So this forces the student to engage, right? I mean, I can't just phone it in. I have to ask something that's relevant. Otherwise, I don't get to move on from this. I mean, or I can try to move on. It'll say, "Do you want to really tap out here?"
Mm.
Okay, so I'll say, "Fine, I'll dig deeper." Let me just sort of get to the point where it will give me permission to move on. I still haven't done enough work. Um, at this point it figures I have at least engaged with it enough that I can get a summary and move on. And this is where the synthesis happens. So I've asked a few questions. It first gave me the feedback, said
Mm.
76 out of 100, you really did not explore this enough. You should have explored it a lot more. And like, what did I miss? And again, this is the view I was talking about, where like
Yeah.
it tells me what are the key points I covered, what are the key points I missed. And then we go into the synthesize portion where
Mm.
there are multiple different ways you can synthesize this. One is the thing that I said, where speak or type your answer to the question and it'll tell you why it's important. So, for example, I can say, and it'll say, nah, not good enough. Basically, it's going to say bad battery.
Hmm.
But if I cover more, it'll tell me what I understood, what I did not. I'll review my quest is just basically a summary of the conversation itself, and I'll take a quiz is going to be the quiz that was generated based on this conversation. We have this other thing where you can write a blog post if you want to. Based on this, this is still something that we're working on.
Mm.
Again, this is a way of, if you, for example, give students an exercise where they have to go write an article or a essay, you're better off controlling the experience. Was our sort of take on this. Is if you ask them to do it, they're going to go ask ChatGPT to do it anyway.
Hmm.
Instead, why don't you make it easy for them? Like they
Yeah.
make it part of the process where they've learned something,
Mm.
and then you can have them iteratively refine it. And as you said earlier, you will be able to watch this and see, okay, what is it they did? Like, what was the process by which they created this?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
see if that was a thoughtful process. So, for example, I can just say, write a blog, and it'll write something. But then, as a professor, now you can look at this and say, okay, this student basically put no effort into writing this. They just said, write something.
Mm.
Instead, I said, oh, sorry. Oh, I am sorry. It looks like it wants to override me. And I say, update. It will go update that. Anyway, this is sort of what we built here.
That's amazing. Now, how can the professors get a taste of this? How can they experience this?
Uh, the free site is free for learners, so they can just go try out what the learner experience is, of
How does
course.
that work?
They just go to Hitwit.ai
Go to
and
Hitwit.ai.
yeah, we can put that in the notes, but they just go to this site, Hitwit.ai, and say, I want to learn something.
Hmm.
If they say, I want to train others, it will ask them to basically get in touch with me
Hmm.
uh, and the team.
I
So
see.
if you fill out a request a demo form, we will get that form and we will maybe have a discovery call, find out exactly what your goals are. And if we think we can help, we'll set up a site for you. At this point, we have funding to do free pilots for a select number of universities. We probably won't do more than 10, but we're happy to do this because I think this is still day one of AI in higher ed, and
Yeah.
we're keen to learn what we can about what works and what doesn't.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Badri. This is amazing. I think this will really help the students be curious about what they're learning in a structured way and iterate the questions that they're curious about into the platform so that they're learning not just on a sliver, but a whole broad concept in a structured way. But also, it helps the professors see what the students are doing with AI and how much progress they're making in terms of learning. So, thank you so much for coming and sharing what you've built. And I really hope that this helps other IPAs. Thanks, Badri.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for making the time, and I'd love to be here. Thanks.
Thanks.